Hi everybody, Dr. Ahles here. In this short video, we're going to talk about the ways that your body maintains the correct water level in each of those fluid compartments. And you'll notice as we discuss the balance of water in your body, it's really going to focus on what the body does with sodium. So these two are inextricably linked. We're going to discuss the two of them together. When we're considering keeping your body's water at a balanced state, at homeostasis, there are two ways that we alter what's going on with your water. The first is behaviors, for example, drinking behaviors, as we see over here. The second is the use of hormones. So hormones will lead to physiological changes that regulate water levels. Behaviors are behavioral changes that alter things. So there are two ways that your body water could be out of balance. The first could be that you don't have enough water in your body. Now, remember when we talk about having a low amount of water in the body, that means that we actually have a high osmolality. If I don't have as much of my solvent, I have a higher concentration of my solutes. So low water, or in the case of high osmolality, is going to trigger specific events in your body. The first thing that it's going to trigger is the thirst sensation. I want you to underline, highlight, star that the sensation of thirst comes from the hypothalamic thirst center. Your hypothalamus, that regulatory region in your brain, is going to activate that thirst sensation. While that thirst sensation is being detected, you're detecting some of that because of the hormone antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. ADH is a hormone that acts specifically on the kidneys to help reabsorb more of the water from what you're drinking. We will also see an increase in the hormones angiotensin and aldosterone. These two hormones work together to increase the sodium level that you're reabsorbing. And remember that when we reabsorb sodium, water comes with it. So antidiuretic hormone directly helps with reabsorbing water. Angiotensin and aldosterone will indirectly help with reabsorbing water. When our water levels are too high, this is also problematic for the body. So if I have a lot of water in the body, my concentration of solutes would be very low. I'd have a low osmolality. In this case, I don't want to keep drinking water, so my hypothalamic thirst center would not be activated. We would even suppress it. I also will not be releasing antidiuretic hormone that helped to absorb water. And it's possible that I might even use atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP. Atrial natriuretic peptide is something that helps to increase the loss of sodium. So notice that when we're talking about water balance, we're also talking about either reabsorbing or secreting sodium, because water follows salt. So let's look first at that hormone we talked about, antidiuretic hormone, that we synthesize when our body water is low. Antidiuretic hormone is a hormone that's made by the posterior pituitary gland. And the posterior pituitary gland will spit out antidiuretic hormone for several different reasons. So if we have an increase in osmolality, meaning there's not very much water and a lot of solutes, there's solutes in comparison, excuse me. Increased osmolality equals increased antidiuretic hormone. Similarly, if we're checking the chemistry of the blood and sodium levels have increased, this also leads to more ADH. The other factor that might trigger the release of ADH is if we have a decreased plasma volume. Decreased plasma volume is typically going to be detected as a decrease in blood pressure. If we have a decrease in blood pressure, that tells the body that we don't have enough water in our blood. So that would be another factor leading to antidiuretic hormone release. There are the mechanism that we use when antidiuretic hormone is released is we generate these kinds of proteins called aquaporins. And aquaporins are protein channels that specifically bring water back in the collecting ducts of the kidneys. So they create a pathway that water can be reabsorbed very efficiently. When I have antidiuretic hormone, I build these proteins. When I do not have ADH, I don't build these proteins and I don't reabsorb that water. So antidiuretic hormone, one hormone that we use when we are exhibiting high osmolality. We have low body water. Another hormone or hormone system that we use when our osmolality is high is the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, the RAA system. Now, the RAA system is a cascade, meaning one hormone activates another hormone, activates the adrenal gland to spit out another one. So we start by secreting renin in the kidneys. Renin will activate angiotensin 2, and angiotensin 2 is something that activates the adrenal gland to spit out the hormone aldosterone. So primarily what is going to be the effective hormone in this system is going to be aldosterone, and it's going to have an effect on the kidneys. When we think about what triggers the releases of different parts of this hormonal cascade, renin is going to be released when we have low levels of sodium. Remember, if we have low levels of sodium, we also have low levels of water. Same deal here with our blood pressure. If our blood pressure is low, we have low levels of water. Renin may also be released, though, if the sympathetic nervous system becomes activated. The sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, is going to tell our body, hey, we probably don't want to be making a lot of urine right now. So the sympathetic nervous system, by activating the adrenal cortex, will also lead to an increase in renin. When we talk about aldosterone itself, interestingly, we have some triggers in the body that bypass the hormonal cascade and lead to a synthesis of aldosterone. In particular, when the plasma levels of potassium are excessively high, this leads the body to spit out aldosterone. Now, this has less to do with water balance and a little bit more to do with electrolyte balance. If we have too much potassium, we don't have enough sodium, and we need those two to be in balance. Aldosterone can help us fix that issue. So when we consider what aldosterone does, the way it has its effect, it's going to help with the increase of sodium reabsorption by the distal convoluted tubules and the collecting ducts. The other thing that it helps us out with doing is actually releasing potassium at the same time. It's a trade. And again, if we are reabsorbing sodium, the water that was with that sodium is reabsorbed as well, meaning instead of going into urine, that water is going back into our bloodstream to address some of the issues that we saw. We also have a hormone that's activated in the opposite condition. So if we have too much water in the body, if our osmolality is too low, now we're going to release a hormone called atrial natriuretic peptide. Atrial natriuretic peptide is something that we make in response to too much water in our bloodstream. That extra water leads to increased volume and increased blood pressure. Specifically, in the case of this particular hormone, when we're talking about the atria of the heart. The mechanism of action for atrial natriuretic hormone, or peptide, is to inhibit those water-conserving hormones that we just discussed. So directly, AMP will decrease the level of renin and angiotensin release and activation in the body. By doing this, we lead to a systemic decrease in blood pressure. Decreased blood pressure is going to help us with returning back to homeostasis. Remember, this was triggered by increased blood pressure. The other thing that AMP does, though, that's more related to our water balance issue, is it decreases the process of sodium reabsorption. So we block antidiuretic hormone and aldosterone. By blocking aldosterone, we're directly blocking sodium reabsorption and indirectly blocking water reabsorption. But when we block antidiuretic hormone, direct block to water reabsorption. So taken as a whole, the goal of this system is to get the body's water content lower. by blocking water conservation, by actively increasing the rate of getting rid of water, will return back to a homeostasis state. So let's look at this all in one image. Our body is trying to stay at homeostasis. The concentration of fluid inside and outside our cells should be relatively stable. If I have too much fluid outside my cell, I've gained a lot of fluid, or I have too much sodium that's causing me to retain fluid, this is going to lead to the release of atrial natriuretic peptide. Remember that atrial natriuretic peptide slows down aldosterone, slows down antidiuretic hormone, and because we're decreasing antidiuretic hormone, the sensation of thirst decreases. This causes us to take in less water, and at the same time, because we don't have ADH to make the aquaporin proteins, we're losing more water in our urine, and we're also losing more sodium, which is taking water with it. All of these factors leads us back to our normal homeostasis state of not having too much fluid. The opposite is true as well, though. If I've lost a lot of fluid or I've lost a lot of sodium, I'm out of balance, this is going to lead me to activate that renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. So renin activates angiotensin. Angiotensin leads to a release of aldosterone, and we see this increase in antidiuretic hormone. So remember, antidiuretic hormone makes you feel thirsty. You'll intake more water. It also helps you to build aquaporin proteins. We're losing less water. And aldosterone also helps with retaining water, but the method that it uses is it reabsorbing that sodium. All of these measures taken together increases the amount of water in our blood, again, returning us back to homeostasis. So big picture, when we're considering water balance, remember that water and sodium are inextricably linked. If I reabsorb sodium, I will reabsorb water. If I secrete sodium, I will lose water with it. All of that helps me to get back to homeostasis, to where I want to be.